What's going on YouTube? Now so far this year, RAV4, Rogue, and CR-V are locked into a heated sales battle for the #1 spot. However, Toyota has just released their wildcard, which neither of those two models have. And not just that, but it's also the only RAV4 to have this really sleek looking XSE trim. All of which is why we've decided to head out to Frankfurt Toyota and check one out. Of course, if you're in the market for any new Toyota, be sure to swing by their dealership or visit them via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with all that said, let's see if this is the best version of the new RAV4. So starting out with the exterior design, thankfully Toyota did not mess much with the new styling from the regular model. That means it continues to have an aggressive and muscular look that much of the competition is lacking, especially here on the hybrid exclusive XSE trim. This is the only model that gets the gloss black trim all around the vehicle, though it does share its gray grille with the Limited. Lower trims will have a black grille instead, and no silver accent at the bottom. Now as far as the headlights, you still have full LEDs as standard equipment, but you will find a slightly different design for the hybrid. Instead of the crystal look, it has a more interesting squiggle design, and on all but the base LE, you'll find halogen fog lights. Moving on to the side, the XSE is the only RAV4 which comes with a black roof, which does match nicely with the gloss black trim pieces that trace the wheel arches and along the rear bumper. Back here, the only thing that changes for the hybrid models is the blue badging, and you'll even find that the dual chrome exhaust outlets carry over. As far as the taillights, they are LED across the range, and have a 3D look similar to Lexus. So overall, Toyota has done a good job with the look of all RAV4s, but this XSE specifically is really attention grabbing and stands out from the humdrum competition. Now heading on up to the wheels, they are different from the regular RAVs. Obviously here on the XSE, we have special black painted 18-inch alloys, but on the Limited Hybrid you'll find 18-inch chrome finished alloys instead of the 19s on the regular gas model. And then on the bottom end, both your LE and XLE share 17-inch alloys. As far as the mirrors, most models come with heating, turn signals, and blind spot monitoring, finished in black for the LE and XSE. Now of course, one of Toyota's standout features across the lineup is their standard advanced safety systems, and for the RAV4 Hybrid we have version 2.0. So just like the last generation, adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, forward emergency braking with pedestrian detection, and auto high beam headlights are all standard. And then for version 2.0, we also add low light pedestrian detection, lane tracing assist, and road sign assist. Overall, this level of standard equipment stands out from the competition. The last two things to talk about on the outside are the tow rating and fuel range. For the first item, the hybrid RAV4 is actually rated higher than most of the gas models at 1,750 pounds. And then for the fuel range, the gas tank has not been downsized from the standard model, so that means this very efficient hybrid model can deliver 580 miles of range. And of course it does that using regular unleaded fuel. So that covers all the hybrid and XSE changes on the outside. So now let's see if there's any changes to the interior. So just like on your gas-powered RAV4, all but the very base LE trim are going to come standard with Toyota's Smart Entry system, as well as their recently redesigned key fob. It does even have the blue trim indicating a hybrid. And then of course, to get inside the vehicle itself, all you have to do is just reach behind the handle since there is a sensor. Alright, so checking out the cabin of the 2019 RAV4 Hybrid. Of course, since this was just fully redesigned, the cabin is pretty much the same as the gas-powered model. However, there are a few unique touches since this is the XSE trim. As far as your colors and materials, you're looking at cloth seating on the LE and XLE in either black, nutmeg, or on the XLE only, gray. However, when you upgrade to either the XSE or the Limited, you're going to get this Softex faux leatherette in just black on the XSE, or if you go for the Limited, you're going to add gray or nutmeg color choices. Now turning over here to your door trim, it is very nicely finished. You do have a leatherette material across this armrest portion as well as across the entire upper part. And on the XSE, you've got a really nice looking blue color contrast stitching detail. As far as your windows, they are one-touch automatic for all four, and two-person memory seating will be standard on the Limited trim only. As far as the seats themselves, on the top two trims, they are 8-way power adjusting with 2-way lumbar support, and then on the bottom two trims, they're going to be 6-way manual. Like I was saying, this is Toyota Softex faux leather. Definitely looks very nice and feels very nice. Here on the XSE, we have this really cool blue insert with the blue color contrast stitching, so it definitely looks very good. So obviously this is the same as the regular RAV4's cabin, and that does mean the really much upgraded materials from the last generation are present here. So across your upper dash you do have a soft touch plastic, and then dropping down to your middle portion you have this nice leatherette material with some more of that color contrast stitching. Of course, as you'd expect, some of your lower areas are hard touch plastic, but everything fits together really solidly, and definitely a lot more solid than if you have the previous generation RAV4 Hybrid. On the same trims with Smart Entry, you do have push button start. When you press it, you'll see one of two different displays fire up. On the LE and XLE, this is going to be 7 inches. However, here on the XSE and the Limited, you're going to have the larger 8-inch display. And of course, being a hybrid, startup is completely silent because we start in the EV mode. But anyways, as far as the gauges here, they are a little bit different than what you see in the gas-powered model. The main thing is our tachometer has been replaced with this little dial here, which shows basically when you're using engine power and when you're charging up the battery. But as far as the rest of it, it is pretty much the same. You'll have a 7-inch multi-function display here in the middle if you go for the XSE or the Limited, and the other trims will come with a smaller 4.2-inch one. It is fully reconfigurable, so you can just go through here and see all your different information, including for your standard safety systems. And then backing up here, all models have electric power assisted steering, but only the top two trims will come with this leather wrapped steering wheel. You have your standard fare buttons right here for your multi-function display, phone, audio, and voice commands. And then on this side, you've got your buttons for your adaptive cruise control as well as some more audio buttons. On this specific model, we do have the regular windshield wipers. However, you can get rain sensing wipers on most of the trims if you choose to opt on a weather package. And that same thing will apply for steering wheel heating, and the steering wheel itself is manual tilt and telescoping. Now moving on to interior storage, this is one of the RAV4's strongest areas. So you've got a lot of different storage areas, starting here with your center console. As you can see, this is really deep. You do have a nice removable felt lining down here at the bottom as well. And then in all but the LE, you're going to find 2 charging USB ports inside of it. Up in front of that, you've got 2 really deep cup holders. And then you've got another storage area up here in the front with a 12-volt outlet aux jack, and a USB port. But where the RAV4 really stands out is that it's got this unique storage shelf. This is something that only Toyota is doing. So you have another big area for your passenger or for you to put stuff. And then there is even another little one over here on the driver's side. So it's definitely just a nice little area, maybe to stick your phone or whatnot. Now Toyota has managed to provide more storage than most of the competition, despite still using a traditional shifter. So of course, to get into drive, all you gotta do is pull back. Then you can bump over here to the left for manual shifting through some 7 simulated gears on the CVT. But you do not have paddle shifters on the hybrid or the gas-powered model. Heading into reverse, you will find a backup camera standard across all models. However, you will have to get at least the XSE to get the projected pathway. And then when you go up to the limited trim, you get the additional option of going for a 360-degree surround vision camera. That's an option through the advanced technology package. And you do also have an electronic parking brake and brake hold feature, and that does automatically engage when you're in park, so you don't have to push and pull it. Now next to this shifter, you've got several different drive modes here. You've got a normal, an eco mode, a sport mode. We actually have a trail mode as well. And then we also have a dedicated EV mode, which can kind of lock the car into battery power until it's depleted. But anyways, the next stop up the dashboard here is the climate controls. Now on the hybrid, you have dual zone automatic climate control standard across the board. That's a little bit different than the gas-powered model, since the LE gas will have manual climate controls, but the LE hybrid will have the automatic climate controls. But anyways, they are very easy to use. As you can see, you've got 2 really large knobs right here, and then you have physical controls for all the rest of the things, so everything is very easily accessible. And then down below you will find heated seats on the XSE and the Limited, and you have optional ventilation on the Limited only. Now heading up here to the audio system, you have a standard 6-speaker audio system across all of the trims. However, optional on XSE and Limited is an 800-watt 11-speaker JBL premium sound system. However, we've got the basic system, so let's go ahead and take a sample of that. Sound quality is pretty good for a bass setup. Alright, so now that brings us up here to our Entune 3.0 system, so let's go ahead and take a quick look. So we do have a dedicated tech help video available if you want to learn more about the system, but for now I'm just going to talk about a few of the main features. So probably one of the most important features that you'll be interested to know is the projection feature. This is for Apple CarPlay, which is standard on every RAV4, as well as Amazon Alexa. However, at this time, we do not have Android Auto. However, that is rolling out to newer Toyotas, so that probably will be updated in the future. You will also find a Wi-Fi hotspot on all models, but as far as integrated navigation, that's only going to be standard on the Limited trim. The rest of the trims come with a thing called Scout GPS Link, and that basically allows you to plug in your phone and it can run the GPS through that. Or once again, like I said, you can use Google Maps or Apple Maps through the standard Apple CarPlay. And then beyond that stuff, there's a couple extra things just for the hybrid model. We do have this little power indicator, so this can tell you when the engine's on, when it's supplying, the electric motor is using, and when the battery is depleting. As you can see, it also kind of gives you a little indication of how much of the battery is left. So that's a real quick rundown of the main features of Entune 3.0. But of course, we do have a dedicated tech help video available if you want to take a much deeper dive. A link to that video is provided in the description. Now heading on up, XSE and Limited models will come with an auto-dimming mirror with your typical built-in HomeLink universal remotes. However, one of the neat tricks that came out this year with the all-new RAV4 is that I can flip this and I can activate a rear camera mirror. So as you can see, this just cuts out all the back obstructions, including the windshield or any cargo you might have back there, and just gives you a really crystal clear view of what's back. And another one of the RAV4's really impressive features is that you got a moonroof on all but the very base LE model, so that's something that stands out from the competition. And you also have an available panoramic moonroof on the XSE and Limited as an extra cost option, which we obviously don't have. But overall, I'm definitely really impressed by the RAV4 Hybrid's interior, as I was with the gas-powered model. You've got a lot of space in here, a lot of storage, and a lot of technology, and it really feels like a big step up from the previous generation model. But anyways, now go ahead and hand it off to Mason, who will finish up the rest of the cabin.
Alrighty, so checking out the rear seat of the 2019 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, you're going to find a good amount of space for its class. You'll find 38 inches of rear legroom and 39 inches of rear headroom, which does place it on par with the Nissan Rogue. However, it is a little bit less than the Honda CR-V. Now turning over here to the door trim, Toyota did make the materials follow through, so you have really nice soft touch plastic going all the way through this middle portion, and it does even continue onto the upper portion with a nice stitching detail going through it. Now down below that, you do have a fully automatic window, as well as a bottle storage holder. And turning over to the seat itself, it is a really cool design here on the XSE. So we do have some blue color contrast stitching in the middle, and it is leather wrapped. Now here in the center, Toyota will give you plenty of features if you opt for all but the base LE. So with that said, you do have these standard vents across all of the trims besides the base LE like I was mentioning, and down below that you will also find 2 smart charging USB ports also on all but the LE. Now it is also worth mentioning that you have heated rear seats as an option on the Limited trim. Now turning over here to the center area, you do have a fold down armrest, it's leather wrapped, and it has cup holders in the end. Up top you have your lighting, a nice headliner, and an assist grip. And as far as rear space is concerned, like I said, this is about middle of the pack, and that shows in terms of legroom. So behind your seating position, I have about 6 to 7 inches of rear legroom, and my feet can easily slide up under the seat. And scooting over, even with the seat scooted all the way back, I still have several inches of rear legroom, so I don't think you're really going to have any troubles in terms of space back here. But overall, I really like the RAV4 Hybrid's rear seat. It's really nice, especially here in the XSE trim, and it really just offers a lot of space and comfort. Now your seats do fold 60-40 split, so all you have to do is hit this little lever, and they will fold right down. Now coming around to the tailgate, it is power on the XSE trims and above, and it is optionally foot activated on the Limited trim. And once you get in the RAV4 Hybrid's trunk, you are once again going to find a good amount of space for its class. You'll find 38 cubic feet behind the second row seats, and then it expands to 70 cubic feet with them folded. Now it is worth mentioning that that is not a loss at all over the regular gas RAV4, and is a little bit behind the CR-V and Rogue in terms of space. However, Toyota does finish it really nicely back here, so we do have a nicely carpeted floorboard, and underneath it, you do have a full-size spare tire, and you do even have some nice storage cubbies off to the side, as well as a 12-volt power outlet, and a cargo cover. Now coming over to the passenger seat is that same nice design, and it is also four-way manually adjusting across all of the trims. In front of the passenger, you do have nice materials with a padded dashboard, as well as a nice storage cubby below that. And further below, you do have a good-sized glove box. Up top, we have a sun visor with a mirror and light. It does also detach and has an extension at the end. Well guys, that sums up all the rear features of the RAV4 Hybrid. So let's go ahead and get out on the road and see how that hybrid powertrain performs.
Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about this car's powertrain. Now obviously this is the hybrid RAV4, so it's using the hybrid power plant. So that's still made of a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, just like in the gas-powered RAV4. But of course it's paired with an electric motor and a nickel hydride battery pack. Altogether, that added up is going to make 219 horsepower, which is actually 16 more than in the gas-powered RAV4. You also have a different transmission. You lose the 8-speed automatic and you're now with a CVT. However, you're all-wheel drive only on the hybrid models, so they're always paired with all-wheel drive. And then of course the reason you buy a hybrid is for the fuel economy, and the RAV4 gets amazing fuel economy for an SUV. It might be the best I've ever seen. We're rated here at 41 city, 38 highway, 40 combined, so that's of course very, very impressive for a crossover of any size. But anyways, now let's go ahead and take this for a spin and see how it compares to the gas-powered RAV4. So of course, when we start it up here, there is no sound because we go straight into the electric drive mode. So our engine just kicked on for the first time as we started moving here. And as you can tell, it is very quiet when it first fires up. Cruising down the road here, definitely very quiet inside the cabin. It rides very, very smoothly. I definitely like the power here in the RAV4 Hybrid. I'm definitely not noticing that there's like a big drop off in power or anything from the gas powered engine. Of course, like I said, the net horsepower is actually more than in the gas powered one, and it feels pretty peppy. You know, you've got the electric motor assisting things, and the CVT is tuned in a very responsive way. It's been a while since I drove the gas powered one, but it definitely feels at least in line with the gas powered one, if not a little bit more peppy on its feet, especially here with the XSE.
And it is worth noting that if you're comparing that to its rivals, the RAV4 is already one of the peppier ones of the bunch, so this is definitely going to be one of your most athletic options in the class.
I'm also really enjoying the way that Toyota has tuned the steering, going to this new T&J platform, just like in the gas-powered RAV4, has really paid off in the way that it feels with ride and handling. The steering is tuned very accurately, nicely weighted, not too soft, not too light. Like I said, very accurate. You can definitely tell where the wheels are placed. You can definitely tell what's going on, and it kind of, it really feels quite agile as we, you know, kind of round corners and whatnot. Definitely an agility that was not present on the last generation model. So it's definitely been a big benefit going to the new platform.
You know, and I really like how I've been in previous, like, other hybrid, actually a Lexus hybrid, and basically this car, it will take off kind of in the battery mode, so it kind of almost feels like an electric car taking off, and then when you need the power, once you're already rolling like 10 or 15 miles an hour, it will then turn on the engine, which I think is a big benefit because it makes it a whole lot less noticeable that the engine is turning on and off. As compared to some other hybrids. So I think Toyota really has done a great job with the setup here in this RAV4 hybrid.
Yeah, and the smoothness definitely has to be commended. Not all hybrids are very smooth when they switch between electric power and gas power. But with this, it's definitely doing it very seamlessly. You can watch and see all the different switches right there with that little animation there. It shows you basically, like right now, we're actually feeding into the battery. We're charging up the battery because we're coasting, we're at power, brake regeneration. And then you can see when it switches into the battery boosting your power. Very neat. What I'm going to do is push the EV mode, and that's going to lock the vehicle into just its battery power until it's depleted, so that if there's a certain situation that you really want to have that ability, then you can lock it in. Now what I had just done is push the accelerator a little too hard. That will not that will knock that off. So you just have to drive relatively conservative to keep it in there. So we'll give it another try. Probably have depleted some of the battery already. But driving around town or whatever, if you want to kind of reduce the sensitivity when the engine kicks on, that's a good option for you to press that.
Or if you're just sitting in traffic or anything like that, you know, you'll be completely green at that point.
course, when you're cruising around the EV mode, it's very, very quiet.
Very quiet and very smooth. You know, this car rides very smooth. I know this is the XSE, so this is like the sportiest option, but it's definitely not going to be too rough for you. The seats are super comfortable, and you can tell that this car is really just made for comfort for all of your family members. It has a very, you know, quiet, refined ride, and, you know, I'm a big fan of it.
But to conclude here, what I was really looking for in this test drive was to see, is there any reason not to get this, basically, because the price difference is pretty insignificant, and you're definitely getting some benefits. And from driving this around for a bit, I honestly can't see a reason why you should not at least consider it. I know your cup of tea. I understand that hybrids are not for everybody, but I think you really should, if you're in the market for a RAV4, at least come by and give both of them a test drive, the gas-powered and the hybrid, and see what you think, because you really are getting some big benefits here in fuel economy. As far as like this XSE trim, for instance, this looks really good, and this is the only way you can get this trim is the hybrid version. So there's definitely some reasons, some really good reasons to get the hybrid, and you're only looking at about an $800 price increase over the gas-powered model. So it definitely seems like something that people should definitely check out. Now for your pricing, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to know that the hybrid only adds $800 over the equivalent gas-powered trim with all-wheel drive, of course, because this does have standard all-wheel drive. So what you're looking at for the LE is a starting price of $27,700. Going up for the XLE brings it to $29,500. XSE starts at $33,700. And then finally you go up to the Limited, which rings in for $35,700. So on this specific XSE RAV4 Hybrid, we got a couple little options. Just $543 protection package, and then $269 carpeted floor mats. So when you add in the destination charge of $1,095, it's going to bring the total to $35,607. Like I said already, that is only about $800 more than an equivalent gas-powered RAV4. So honestly, it seems like a pretty good value given all the benefits that we've already discussed.
Well guys, we've enjoyed watching this in-depth look at the 2019 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid XSE. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.
Mm-hmm.